longer pointed out, and 3 times Galzu pointed to the constellation of the Ram. In the dream vision, Galzu spoke to Enlil. The rightful time of benevolence and peace will be followed by wickedness and the shedding of blood. Marduk's ram will replace Enlil's bull in the 3 celestial portions. He who has declared himself the supreme God will take over the supremacy on earth. By decree of fate, a calamity as never before will happen. And as in the times of the flood, a just and worthy man must be chosen. Through him and by him, his seed will be preserved and civilized humanity will survive, as is the will of the Creator of all. When Enlil woke up from the dream vision, there was no tablet next to the bed. Enlil wondered, was it a heavenly oracle, or did I imagine everything in my heart? In his celestial ship, Anu, the king of Nibiru, approached Earth, accompanied by his wife, Antu. On Earth, the descendants of Shem dwelt in the mountainous territories, and the black-headed people were migrating to their old land. Awaiting the arrival of the royalty of Nibiru, the Anunnaki on Earth were re-establishing their dwellings in Eden. At that time, the ground had just dried, and the Anunnaki resettled, providing food for everyone. In the grounds where Enki's first city, the ancient Eridu, once stood, a new Eridu emerged, marked on top of countless mud and sediment deposits. In the center, on an elevated platform, a new home for Enki and Damkina was erected. It was adorned with gold, silver, and precious metals that Enki's own children delivered. The monument was named the House of Tiles of the Lord, whose return is triumphant. Above, in a circle pointing to the sky, the 12 constellations were marked by their signs. Below, as in the Abzu, waters with swimming fish flowed. And then, far from the reach of others, in a sanctuary that no guest could enter, Enki guarded the ME formulas. That was the first ziggurat that rose. And it was no different for Enki's brother, Enlil. Thus, another ziggurat was erected. That was the next Nibru key, built especially for Enlil and Ninlil. On top of clay and mud, the building rose. It was a sacred enclosure erected among the dwellings and cattle pens. It was a ladder to heaven, built in 7 stages. A staircase that rose to the highest plateau. Inside, Enlil kept the tablets of destinies. Thus rose the lifted eye that scanned the lands, observing everything. In the courtyard, in its own enclosure, Enlil's fast-stepping skybird remained. Days passed and the arrival of Anu and Antu was approaching. It was decided to build a celestial dwelling to wait for the king, which was neither near Enlil nor Enki. That was Unuki, the delightful place. Large trees were planted to cast shade over the royalty of Nibiru. A pure white structure rose. It was the house of Anu, built in the middle of the garden. When Anu's celestial ship arrived on Earth, the Anunnaki's small spacecrafts flew towards it, and so they guided the celestial ship to a safe landing at the place of the chariots in Tilman, in the land of missiles. Utu, the commander, welcomed his great-grandparents who were arriving on planet Earth. Thus, the 3 sons of Anu, the Anunnaki Enlil, Enki, and Ninma, were there to greet them. They embraced and kissed, laughed and cried. The time they had been apart was so long, and their appearances were so different. Although the parents were older in Shars, they looked younger than their children. The two sons looked older and bearded. Ninmah, once full of beauty, was now bent and wrinkled. All were filled with tears. They were tears of joy and sadness mixed together. Thus, the royalty of Nibiru was received on earth. From the skies, celestial ships full of guests arrived in Eden, to a place prepared next to Unug-Ki, where the ships were landing. All the Anunnaki who had stayed on Earth were standing in a guard of honor position. They waved welcome in unison to Anu and Antu. Then, in a procession, singing and playing music, the Anunnaki accompanied the guests to the house of Anu. In the house of Anu, the king washed and rested. Antu went to the golden bed house, accompanied by other Anunnaki, and there she also washed and rested. Next, the king and queen returned to the public space, in the open courtyard. Like an evening breeze, the leaves of the trees whispered as Anu and Antu sat on their thrones. Enlil, Enki, and Ninmah were beside them. The celebration had begun. Earthly servants served wine, and in another corner a bull and a ram were being roasted. These were gifts from Enlil and Enki to the royalty of Nibiru, now on Earth. A great banquet was prepared for Anu and Antu, waiting for the sign in the skies to begin. Under the instructions of Enlil, Zumul, who was knowledgeable about stars and planets, climbed the steps of the house of Anu to announce the rise of the planets at dusk. They waved welcome in unison to Anu and Antu. On the first step, Kishar appeared in the eastern skies, singing and playing music. Or the second step was seen. Accompanied the guests Mumu was announced on the third step. Anshar emerged on the fourth step. In the house of Lamu was seen on the fifth step. The moon was announced on the sixth step. Then, under the signal of Zumul, the hymn was recited. It was called, "The Planet of Anu in the Skies Rises" began to be sung. For from the highest step, the seventh, Nibiru with a red halo came into view. To the sound of music, the Anunnaki clapped and danced. They danced and sang. The songs were for the brightly shining planet. The songs were directed to the celestial planet of Lord Anu. And with a signal, a bonfire was lit. Thus, each of the bonfires everywhere were ignited. Before the night was over, all of Eden was lit by bonfires. After a meal of bull and ram meat, fish and bird, accompanied by wine and beer, Anu and Antu went to their rooms, and all the Anunnaki were thankful for them. For several days and nights on Earth, Anu and Antu slept. It was only on the sixth day that he called his two sons and his daughter. He listened to reports of what had occurred on Earth, of peace and war. Anu heard that the inhabitants of Earth, who should have been eliminated by Enlil's oath, had proliferated again. Enlil also revealed to him the discovery of gold in the land beyond the oceans, and the location of the new chariot's place. It was then that Enki told his father about the dream and the tablet that Galzu had given to him. Anu was confused. A secret emissary by his name. He had never sent anyone to Earth in his name. The three leaders were confused, not knowing who had sent Galzu. Enki said, "Because of Galzu, Zusudra and the Seed of Life were saved." Enlil said, "We stayed on Earth because of Galzu. He warned us we would die the day we returned to Nibiru." Anu could not believe it. Enki and Enlil said in unison, If it wasn't you, then who sent Galzu? Ninma nodded her head and then spoke. Galzu came in the name of the creator of all, she declared. Then she continued, was the creation of Earth's inhabitants also predestined? For a while, the four remained silent, reflecting on past events in their hearts.